Okay, how's it going everyone? So today we're going to be releasing the TinyTrainer V2, and basically it's the same fun, durable quad as the TinyTrainer V1, but we've just tried to make it better in every way. We've taken the monoplate design, got rid of that. We have removable arms, they're all one screw arm removal, but they're M3 screws that put those in. So you're gonna need a 2mm driver and a 1.5mm driver to build your quad. And the nice thing about this design, it used to be that you'd have to cut all your zip ties, remove all the screws to get into that quad, and sometimes even your USB port if you didn't have a downward facing. But now, if you just loosen two screws, two 1.5mm screws on the back sides, on the back of this cover, you have a canopy that hinges up and you can get completely inside your drone. Now another, I guess, convenience upgrade, we've gotten rid of all the TPU parts you need, and it has a built-in camera mount into this canopy, and there's two sets of holes. So you'll notice that I have mine in the back set of holes, and that's where you get your traditional angles like 45, 50, 60 degrees. But if you want something really low, like we used to have special mounts for that. But if you just move it to those front screws, you're gonna be able to drop it down all the way. You could be basically 5 degrees, maybe 0 if you have a small enough lens. And then that'll make it so like any beginner can fly this thing. They'll be able to keep it really steady and still see the horizon. Because typically with a TinyTrainer mount, you'd be like 30, 35 degrees. And it just made it a little hard for some people. And then we never shipped with those stem cam mounts, but with this, right out of the box, you'll be able to go super low degrees. And then another thing we added was that you can basically fit any AIO in this. The build space inside of this is a lot larger than the build space that was in the V1. In the V1, you were kind of limited by your front two standoffs, and anything that kind of went outside of like a Beta FPV 20 amp board, like outside of that space or footprint, you were kind of out of luck. But this, those two front standoffs aren't there, and you just have all the space in the world. You can also build it up double stacked AIO, like if you want to do an HD0 or a walk snail build. You can get that little VTX up top. Right here I'm running the Fusion board, so this is an analog build, but it has that little Fusion board that's a receiver and a VTX built into one board, and then it just mounts on those AIO holes. And I'll actually have a build video right after this talking about how to build that up really quick. Probably one of the easier builds I've ever done. And then I guess we can cover exactly how you build this, so it's the easiest way to go for it. Because if you put the arms in first and then try to put the body together, sometimes those screws are hard to reach. So here's a CAD little assembly video to show you how to put it together, or how I found best to put it together. So you'll start with your mid plate, and then you're going to take your little front and back carbon pieces that the canopy attaches to, and you'll drop those right in. Then you'll drop your, I guess, top plate onto that, which is going to hold everything in place, and it should like kind of friction fit all together. And then you're going to take your back standoff, install that, and just loosely put those screws in, because the canopy is going to slide over those two rear screws. And then once that's on, you're going to put your front standoff in, put those screws on, and then that kind of makes it super easy to be able to get to those front two screws for your canopy. Then the next step will be to take your arms, slide them into place, and then you put your M3 screws in there, and you can really torque on those. And that's why we went with M3 screws. It's so you can get a super tight grip and you're not worried about stripping the screws. And then that is the easiest way I've found to put it together. And you can put your stack screws in afterwards. They're accessible straight from the bottom. You can go straight up to the I guess top plate is what I'm calling it right now, but it's not a traditional frame, so I guess you'd have your two body plates, your upper and lower body plate. So then, yeah, you can get your AIO screws in later, but one thing to always keep in mind, in the TinyTrainer V1 too, some people would get the AIO way too close to the carbon plate, short to it, immediately kill the quad. So now we have these press nuts that you're going to want to clear. Whenever you put your AIO in, you want to make sure that all of the surface mount components on your AIO board are clearing that those press nuts, or else you're going to short and you're going to kill your board right as soon as you plug it in. We still have our little battery trays. but they attach a little differently. So on the V1, they'd attach to your front 2 standoff screws, your AIO screws. This is actually screwless. We have these little arrowheads on the lower body plate that they attach to, but you can use those arrowheads for rubber bands, because a lot of micro builders or micro flyers will take rubber bands to attach their batteries. You can still do that with those arrowheads. And another nice thing about it is that now there's a slot, so if you don't even care for this battery tray or rubber bands, you can get a little micro battery strap, slide it through there, put it over your battery, and you're good to go. But one nice thing about this battery tray that comes stock is that you can't slide your battery out the front anymore. We used to worry about that from hitting the camera, but now it doesn't hit the camera, and you still don't have to worry about it sliding out the front, because it attaches that front standoff and then keeps it from sliding out. And then it's on there good. Just attach those 2 side arrowheads, and you're basically good to go. Yeah, it's just, I guess, upgraded in every way we could think necessary to make it just more fun, more durable. Now you could fit a bigger board in there, so you technically have higher rated FETs, so it's even more durable electronics wise, and they're 3mm arms, so it's more durable carbon wise. And we'll have a ton of I guess quick tips or things we learn along the way as we fly it longer. One thing I've already learned, if you're flying it in really cold, the way these arm covers go on with the zip ties, like whenever it's super cold out and you hit something, they could snap and then you might lose an arm cover. So you could just tape them on, like with some thin electrical tape or something along those lines, and then you don't have to worry about losing it in super cold temperatures. But whenever it's like, I don't know, 50 degrees or higher, I have not broken a zip tie and never lost a little arm cover, but we will have spare canopies, spare arm covers. The Manaz LED kit fits perfectly in these. Let me plug this one in, and as I guess, yeah, you saw it in the intro that you have your full LED kit. So then, yeah, this thing's ready to go. We're gonna show you real quick how we built this one up, and then you can order it today. Thanks for joining us. Okay, so I went ahead and I pre-soldered the camera lead, the motor wires, the battery lead, and the capacitor, but I added these little dongles to 5-volt ground, volt or video out, and TX1, and then the receiver lead is coming from ground, 5-volt RX2, and TX2. And both of those dongles, or I guess little wires, are going to go to this fusion board, which is I guess an ELRS hybrid board, so to speak. So then you're going to solder it up to your ground, 5-volt video, and smart audio on the fusion board. And then as soon as you're done with those 4 wires, we're going to move over to doing our receiver wires, which are going to be the 5-volt ground, TX, and RX. And to solder up your TX and RX, they're going to be swapped. So if it's RX coming from the flight controller, it goes to TX on the fusion board. But one little tip whenever installing this, these little gummies they were spares that came with the Tune RC board that we sell, and those fit perfectly into this fusion board, those little side holes, and then the front hole is actually an M2 hole. So it has M2 and then M3s on the side, and then those gummies fit perfect on the side, and we're stacking on top of our Tune RC AIO. And now we're soldering up our receiver wires, so that's going to go to the respective pads on the fusion board. And after that, we are done. This build's ready to go. You just need to flash it, and you need to bind your ELRS fusion board, which comes pre-flashed with ELRS V3. We're going to throw some M2 nuts on here, and then we're going to, I guess, make sure everything is out of the way, because whenever the canopy comes down, it actually comes in contact with that upper body plate, and that helps keep some of the impact forces off of the M2 screws. We also have that front standoff that comes in contact with the lower body plate, and that keeps force off of the little carbon pieces that the canopy attaches to. But once you tighten these rear 2 screws, it's easier to get to these little rear 2 screws if you don't have these arm covers on yet. So if you build it up and don't put the arm covers on until the end, you can have a direct shot straight in line axially with that rear M2 screw. But as you can see, clean all together. We can just plug it in real quick, and this quad is ready to go. Can't wait to see more TT V2s out in the wild.